How often should you compete? This is a topic that's discussed by powerlifters, bodybuilders, CrossFit, obviously, as well as Olympics, um, boxing, MMA, and so on, right? I'm not talking about anything that's not specific to me. So let's talk about the powerlifting world, right? Kind of what comes down to how often should I compete? How often should you compete? I think this comes down to a few different pillars, right? A few different things that need to be set in place in order for you to compete, right? When we're talking about a prep, typically in powerlifting, that's usually a 12-week prep. That's 3 months, right? That's a fourth of your year, a quarter of your year that you are spending. If you respect the sport, it really should be at a very high standard for those 12 weeks, right? Um, so I think that that's something that nowadays happens quite a bit is people try to compete too often. Therefore, they're just not simply able to lock in for those 12 weeks, right? Um, Multiple times throughout the year, I think, is an issue. I think when you're talking about a prep, you're talking about uh, emotional intensity, high tonnage, high volume, a lot of stress on the body, and a lot of stress on the joints as well, depending on technique, depending on leverage ability. And so those are kind of the things that we have to look at in order to see if you're ready to enter a prep. And so what that looks like, right? That looks like getting all your meals in, tracking your macros, as well as just having a consistent routine, right? Whether that's just your gym time that you're going every single day, 4 days a week, so forth. I think once your meals, your water, and your gym time is locked in, I think that physically you are prepared to compete. Secondary to that is the mental state. Everyone's different. Not everyone has to be absolutely dialed for 12 weeks. Some of them can kind of turn it on the last 6 to 8 weeks. And depending on how calm you are as a lifter as well, right? But I think that what that mental state looks like is a bit of hunger mixed with serenity or clearness, because you have to understand, like, okay, this is what I'm gonna go take a shot at. This is what I'm gonna go take a bite of. This is what I want in 12 weeks. But then you also have to have enough clarity to be able to really put a stamp on that, as far as, okay, now. So if you're not in the state of mind to kind of get to that point, right, or if you don't feel like you're within grasp of that, that is completely fine. Take that off season, build that volume up. Don't miss your gym sessions. Don't. Um, yeah, build that up. And I think that's something where um, we see a lot of, like, whether it's MMA, stuff like that, even those guys, they fight 2 to 3 times a year. I think in powerlifting, I think that's probably the sweet spot, right? When you're on that newer side of things, I think three times is a little much. One tactic that I've seen a lot of, like the flex lifters and those kind of guys talk about flex training systems. They'll do, like, kind of like in succession, right? They'll have like 3 meets, but it's within 6 months, right? And then they kind of spend the other half of the year building. You can kind of play around with that. I like more of a consistent approach, I will say. I like a over the summer, build up, maybe compete at the end of the summer and then the beginning of the winter, right? Or early winter if you're doing twice a year, as well as competing in the winter and then right before the summer. But yeah, if you're going to compete 3 times, I would advise you, if you're a beginner and there's nothing on the line as far as like invitations, qualifying totals, such like that, I would advise you to compete twice a year. Just get strong. But if you want to do a third, that's fine. But understand that third, one of the 3 has to be for experience and not for a total PR, right? You have to kind of train through the volume block, and then just compete, whether you're on triples or whatever. Like, you can't be spending that much time outside of that building phase if you're serious about the sport and serious about long-term progress. That's just something I wanted to talk about today is how do you know when you're ready to compete? When and how often should you compete? Like I said, it has a lot of these factors that build up into it that are kind of pillars of a competitor. But then it also has a little bit to do with where do you want to see yourself in the future, and what is the best thing that will get you there. Likely, it's a long off season. Sorry to say. Deuces.